Hi, we are Tim and Carolina, and we're a couple of friends, colleagues, and former coworkers. We love the contact and building products industry, and for the past 15 years, we've been bouncing ideas off each other and talking perspectives, residential, commercial, sales, technical, market research, data analysis, and so much more.
15 years, yes. And that inspired us to share our experiences and guest experiences to broaden perspectives in the construction verse. And it's all made possible by you and support from Job Site IQ. More on that later.
Awesome.
Carolina, we're doing this.
We're doing
It's
it.
happening.
I can you hear it in my voice how excited I am? Yeah, I've missed podcasting. I like it. I love podcasts.
It's huge just in, at least personally, my thought process, how I think about the industry and the things going on, sharing it and talking through it with you and other people when we have on guests. It just
Hmm.
helps things congeal or gel. Ideas come together, different, kind of gives a different, obviously, perspective. You get different perspective from it, but it's been something that's been missing. I've been trying to figure out, am I losing cognitive ability? Am I cognitive decline? Because uh
After a certain age, use it or lose it. Well, I think always use it or lose it, but yeah.
right.
No,
But
it
this is one
everyone
of
should
those
have
ways to
that.
use it so I don't lose it.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think, like I said, everyone should have a Tim or a group of people that they trust that aren't necessarily in their ecosystem, that that they can just, hey, what are you hearing? Hey, what's going on over there? Like, what are you seeing? This is what I'm seeing. And that's the whole point of Build Perspectives. And that's why we're here. And hopefully that's adding value to our listeners. That's our hope, is it's just to bring things forth to make things better.
Right. And the beauty of that is we all have different catalysts for aha moments. I'll give you a couple examples.
That's a
And
good
a lot of
point.
it comes from podcasts and going to events and hearing people speak and hearing what's new out there. The aha moments that I've kind of focused on recently, I shouldn't say kind of, I absolutely have focused on recently. One is with my job at Nichiha, and then another is with one of my main frameworks or optics on the industry, which is adoption. So I started sort of nicknaming these different ideas or aha moments as aha adoption, kind of putting aha and adoption together.
And
And
did you buy the domain for that?
I didn't.
Oh, you
It wasn't.
better.
It wasn't available. It wasn't available. Can you believe it? Someone else had
Dang.
adoption moment,
Hmm.
and then the Nietzsche ha adoption aha moments or Nietzsche aha moments, which is the campaigns going on right now, and trying to think through the framework of what bright things can happen. They don't have to be like a supernova, but we have these little things that sort of niggle at us throughout the day. Well, a lot of those things that are bugging the back of our brains or the front of our brains or wherever I'm not a neuroscientist, but wherever those are hitting, those should be expressed, and those could be something because it kind of reminds me of what Todd Tomlak told me one time. He said, Tim, don't assume, and this is advice for everyone, it wasn't just for me, but I think he was sharing something he learned about himself. Don't assume that other people know what you know, and what we think is a matter of course or something may be an aha moment for someone else. But
That's
you've
exactly
had
right.
plenty. You mentioned that you had an aha moment recently,
Oh my gosh.
or
Yeah,
maybe many. I bet
I
you
had
many.
I have aha moments all the time, thankfully, and I had one yesterday. But yeah, what you take for granted, it's somebody else's gold. Like I totally agree with that. And the aha moment that I had yesterday, without too much preamble, is I created How to Job Site from a lot of market research and talking to folks and seeing what was needed out there. And Mark Mitchell really helped me with that. And I know we're going to talk about him later. He actually came up with the term how to job site. So, but construction material sales and building product sales are also Contech and software sales. So the way that you sell building products like a window or lighting or furniture is not very different than how you would sell software. And software salespeople would benefit from understanding what goes on in the job site. I mean, it like I know product market fit, obviously, like you're going to take into account how people use your product, you know, your minimum viable product, and then get market feedback. But if they don't trust you and you're not at a job site and you're not able to walk into a GC's office and understand, teach them how to use it and teach them the ROI and show them how it actually benefits, then you're just another salesperson. That was my aha moment from yesterday. I was like, damn, like I've been focusing on, you know, building product manufacturers, but software sales are the exact same thing, if not worse.
I know it's been a hard conundrum for software folks in the space, startups especially, because they want to hire somebody that knows the vernacular and has the contacts in the building industry, but also can understand and demo the system and work within their ecosystem of coders and engineers and so forth, and be able to
Mm-hmm. You
feed
be a
that
bridge.
that
Yeah,
back, right? But that's been a
exactly.
hard thing for the industry to hire for, from what I've heard. So part of the point of credibility on the job site or in the office of an architect or general contractor or an owner, especially, is understanding the vernacular in which they speak on a day-to-day basis. And the job site has its own sort of, language, and
Mm-hmm.
the office of an architect has its own language, and then the owners for sure have their own language because they're thinking more terms of underwriting
Money, money, money.
terminology and money. Yeah. So the
Insurance, yeah, money.
the job site, how to job site, and turning that into a verb is an eye opener. And I'm sure that whoever learns about it is going to be, oh yeah, that makes total sense. And the reason I say that is I was just at the building products customer workshop in Nashville with the Venvio folks. And that event used to be, it's not really the same as the Wizards Summit that we both have been to. It's a little bit more on the digital marketing and content side than the sales side, but they kind of were co-located somewhat at a time because Venvio and Wizard, Mark Mitchell, were doing it together. But that was just last week, and one of the big challenges in the industry that was voiced by the leaders of the building product manufacturers and suppliers that were there were also the same complaints that the people on the builder and architect panels said, or the things that they loved about reps. One is return a phone call. Call me on the phone. Email isn't working like it used to. Text messages are still great, and get out on the job sites, come to the office in
Mm-hmm.
person. And then, so that's what the panels were saying. And then the building product manufacturers, suppliers, more the manufacturers, I don't think suppliers have that hard of a time getting their people out the door. But they were saying, one manufacturer was saying, well, I feel like I just have hotel point collector people. So we're moving everything in-house, inside sales. We're going to have everyone work from their desk, either at home or at the office, because I feel like this being on the road isn't that productive. And
And I
maybe
think that
they
makes
haven't
sense.
taken howtojobsite.com.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, y'all, like there is a program out there for that, but I think it depends on the business. It depends on the product. It depends on the customer. It depends how you go to market. Everyone benefits from going to job sites, but yeah, I mean, I understand bootstrapping, and I understand when you gotta rein things in and close rank. That I get that. I just think that you're leaving money on the table if you're not visiting your customer, and your customer is the guy that places the order, or female that places the order, and that's the person that's installing your product or using your product, and that person needs to see your face, and they need to know that you understand how the product's used. Like there's so many benefits to going to job sites other than like mediating a conflict, or oh, I'm swinging by to drop off a sample, or submittal or whatever. Like sitting down at a trailer and looking at plans, with the GC, understanding where his or her schedule is being held up and what issues they're having with deliveries. And like, first of all, you're going to get an education that you didn't realize you could get. You're opening your world up to so many different the all the different nuances and all of the pain points that GCs have. Like, I think, I don't know about you, Tim, but in my experience in sales, the GC was always the hardest nut to crack. They're like the most difficult person to be friendly with, and like, I don't know how to say this in a polite way, but like, they're not like the nicest of the the main four players that you have in a sales process. But there's a reason for that. Like, they're busy, they are stressed, they, their life is just full of, it's a juggling act, and all that they need from you is support and not surprises, and like, never surprise them ever. Oh my god, that is like the number one thing. And I think I was telling you earlier, I was in a forum earlier this week where a rep organized, a manufacturer organized, it was a rental construction equipment rental company, organized this thing with these GCs, project managers and estimators, and they were like, just, it was like a roast. Like, what do you hate about salespeople? It was so eye-opening, and that's where, to me, I was like, gosh, software is the same thing. Because they're like, if you're trying to come sell me software, don't even start with that. And I was like, wow, software companies are facing the same issues that manufacturers face.
Well, the classic discovery call is what, at least in my experience, from software companies, and I guess there's portable to our industry. The software from the software side, a lot of times the discovery call isn't at all about discovering what your challenges are. It's about still just a pitch. And
Mm-hmm.
the meaning and the purpose of and impact of a discovery call is to learn what the person's challenges are, and if your solution is a fit, great, but it might not be. And
Right.
that's where, in the old days we'd say that's where your sales hat goes on, and now you got to basically strong
ABC.
arm into it. But it's really important to go to job sites or offices in person, yes, but with purpose and impact. And if we have purpose and impact, and then we have a strong reason to go, and we should be able to go with supreme confidence to those spaces because we know we've done our research, we've asked the right questions, and now we know enough to have the credibility to go into these offices and find out what's the challenges. And some of these manufacturers in the room in Nashville last week, most of them were having a challenge getting their people to go out or to return phone calls. And
Why do you think that is? Like, why is there a gap in sales training? Like, what is the, like, when we were in sales, like, if you're home, you're gonna get fired.
there's a huge gap in sales training and presentation skills, and that does dovetail well with how to job site, or learning your job site IQ, which I really love and I know we'll get into. But when you read throughout Mark Mitchell's blue book, which I had forgotten the title to because I just call it blue book, it's
Building
this
materials channel marketing.
right. And I'm so glad I have a hard copy of it. I wish I had my signed copy now. But when I look at these chapter titles, how to sell builders, how to sell lumber dealers, how to sell showroom dealers, how to sell contractors, how to sell architects, and sell into design build and facility managers. Those, that's a third of the chapters,
It's the
and those
Bible.
all require going in person. But you still have to do your pre-call planning. You have to at least have some reason to be there. And donuts and pencils, it kind of depends on the job site. People do love pencils, that's for sure. But you have to have a reason to be there. And I was just
And you
talking
have
with,
to add value. Like, I think, you know, first, the Mark Mitchell book is the Bible. Like, it is what I used when I went from technical to sales, and I didn't know what the hell selling was, other than like, I had been on sales calls with people before. And I really learned I got a great education out of this book, I have to say. But I think, part of what made me successful early on in sales after I knew the book, right, was understanding what I was selling. So like you can't just show up and because you need something. I think you called it commission breath. Like you can't show up to get something. You have to show up to give something. And you can't give if you don't understand your product, if you don't understand the technical side of your things, like what, and if you don't understand what the people that you're going to see need and want. Like the architect has a specific need and want and a timing. The GC has a specific need and want, which is different, and a timing. And the installer has a different need and timing and language, and the owner too. So, and this book really helped to make that very clear for me. Like, what every person speaks a different language. They all dress differently. Like, even, like you can see an architect a mile away. You can tell, like, there are different tells. And he goes into it some in the book, and then of course in his podcast that he had, and the events that he put on. And yeah, I mean, I learned so much about how to differentiate myself as a salesperson from this, and then of course leveraging the experience, because obviously, like Todd said, what you take for granted is something that can really help somebody else, even if you think it's stupid. Like my experience early on at Nichihau was just going to job sites to either train installers or fix a problem. And I just thought it was stupid, but it turns out, 10 years of doing that will actually build some skills. Turns out, I don't know.
So important. And I was just talking with our VP of sales, and we were talking about the list of general contractors and developers, because it's really important for building product manufacturers. That's not a secret. It's not intellectual property. It's really just about elbow grease of getting out to see the right people, and not enough manufacturers spend enough time with developers, owners, and general contractors. One way, if I had a gun to my head today to contact these folks, the two things I would do right away, I would, of course, jump on LinkedIn and send probably 20 cold messages while I'm having my coffee, and then I'd hit the road, get my other coffee, and I'd go to job sites, because we had this really interesting thing happen a few times on our blitzes. In Jersey, we went to a GC's job site because it was across the street. Well, actually, we went to the architect's office. He said, "Oh yeah, our job site's right down the street." So he walked us over there, introduced us to those folks, and then we had a good conversation there. And then they said, "Oh, you need to go to this other job site of
Exactly.
ours, and it's a different PM, it's a different developer." And so we walked down to that job site, and we didn't have our PPE with us, but we were able to have the conversations out on the sidewalk. That's a miss. I mean, we were doing something
And
different.
sometimes they'll give you the PPE if they want you in there bad enough. They'll go get you a hard hat and a vest, and say,
Right. Right.
as
And
long as you're not wearing
thankfully, it's
sandals.
Jersey, so they're building basically right out to the sidewalk. So
Right.
everyone's on the sidewalk anyway.
That's true.
So so that was a really good, but there's so much you learn from those. You learn who the developers are, what challenges they're having, and what wins they're having, like what their great subs and suppliers are, who are the
Mm-hmm.
players they love, who are the players like, oh my goodness. A lot of times you hear about all the regulatory issues they're facing in the building department, and traffic control and those sort of things too. Well, what happens is you start to suss out the real challenges that you can actually help solve, and but you also learn their language and the things that
Mm-hmm.
are, even if you can't do anything about it. Then when you go to the next job site, you say, wow, what a crazy thing to have to deal with all this traffic control and getting the permits for that, and having to lift the honey bucket to the whatever floor, and then having to get a permit for that. They go, yeah, I know, I totally know, you know, and they can then go, oh, okay, this person kind of knows
Yeah,
my
they feel
my
seen. Like that's like a basic human need. Everybody needs to feel seen and validated. And when you're able to speak in their language, they know that you get it. And one of the other advantages that I don't think you mentioned is they'll tell you where they're going next. Like what, so you're able to grow your pipeline just from having some of these conversations. It's not going to happen every time. And some of the time when they're talking to you about the subs that they hate, like take that with a grain of salt. Like
Yes.
everybody's different. Like we each have the people that we prefer working with. Just because you have a, maybe like this has happened to me. I don't know about you, but there's a sub that like I love working with and I recommend to a lot of people. And then I'll go to a job site and I'll hear them throw shade at that installer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like should I be worried? And like that's happened to me a couple times, but I'm like, but I love that guy, like I love that company, why are you talking bad about them? But you know, keep it like take their advice with a grain of salt. Like sometimes
What
there's
we have to do
truth.
with everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's true for them may not necessarily be true for you either, but it you still benefit, you still benefit from knowing that.
It's a great point to bring up about learning their pipeline, because this is especially important for design build and the negotiated work type folks. There are many firms out there that, and companies and GCs and owners groups, nothing goes to bid. It's all negotiated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, you're not going to see it on Dodge or Construct Connect. You're not going to see it on Spec Link or anything like that. It is all negotiated work. And you're never going to see those pipelines outside of those organizations. And that's
That
how
is an
you learn
excellent
what they
point.
have coming up on the boards for the next,
Yeah.
usually it's the next 4 to 5 years.
And I was talking to somebody, and I don't know if they want me to say their name, so I'll check. But they are a manufacturer of adhesives and sealants, and they exclusively now just sell at job sites because they understand that with a product like that, your relationship with the sub and the GC is the most important.
That's a big gap for the industry. So, and I know it's a moving target because it's not an in place brick and mortar business that's there permanently. But I know the Snap on people just crush it. And they're on
Mm,
route. I understand it's a route sales, and we don't necessarily always want our people in a route and a milk run type thing situation. But there isn't that. I mean, maybe you have the food trucks that go to the job sites, but
mhm.
typically people aren't going to the job site to sell something and then have a way to process the sale. That's something that, for big ticket things like at Nichiha, of course, where someone's going to buy $100,000 of cladding, that stuff is invoiced at the office. But for any met tools, any kind of tools, or uh, like
Even rental
the
equipment.
accoutrement, a rental equipment. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know those. I know the United Rentals people carry their point of sale on their iPad. Um, but more people should do that because there's a lot of friction you could reduce there.
Yeah, like there's something for everybody with a job site visit. Whether you're in a red ocean commodity product or a highly specialized, customized whatever, you benefit from visiting the job site. You gain pipeline if your product is a spec type of product. Like there's so much opportunity out there.
I love the as we're thinking through the job site conversation and the, I guess, Venn diagram or mind map that comes out of that, or this person's connected to that person and that job's connected to that project's connected to that project, and then this is what's going on over here, and these guys work with this supplier and this supplier
Was it
works.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon? What was that? 9 degrees? I
Yeah,
forget.
yeah, and in this industry sometimes it feels like it's only 2 or 3 degrees of
For
separation.
real.
but
Yes.
but it's real. You learn the ecosystem. I know, talking about the podcast and how we connect to people and the ecosystem, and
I think that's the word of the day.
the word of the day is ecosystem, and there's another one that's sort of related to that, and that is echo chamber.
Mm-hmm.
We talked maybe, I guess, a couple weeks ago, and this is something that's been coming up a lot, is
Mm-hmm.
changing up what I'm listening to and reading, because and even my feeds start to look like an they start to look like and sound like an echo chamber. why am I seeing that? I'm hearing the same thing 4 or 5 times a day from different people, which can lead to some recency bias. So I am changing those things up. Well, if you're in the office all the time, you can have an echo chamber. I know that we're going to talk about this maybe related to something else, but you can be in an echo chamber because you're hearing the same narrative and rhetoric within your company. And as soon as we get out, we hear what the customers are saying. And this goes for leaders too. Leadership. I love the picture of Brad Jacobs from QXO. He was out at one of the locations and then out at a job site. And maybe that's not obviously an everyday thing for a CEO, but leadership should be out on job sites too, because obviously it's good for camaraderie, it's good support for the salesperson, it's great for people to see leaders out there that's all warm and fuzzy. But what the intelligence that the sales reps hear from the field don't always make it into the CRM and back to marketing and back to leadership. It
Mm-hmm.
kind of ends up getting lost in the mix most of the time. So that's another good reason for leadership to be involved on the job site and also be asking their folks, hey, what are you hearing out there? And this
Mm-hmm.
is a very important part of being on the job site and getting out of the echo chamber.
Absolutely. And also there can be an echo chamber even within your customers. Like we've all learned, like, we've gotten used to it in the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years. Algorithms have gotten so smart on YouTube and chat GPT even, and everybody tells you what you want to hear so that you stay on that platform. So we have to be very, very careful that we're not watching the same channels, that we're not listening to the same stuff. And I don't know, Tim, like we called this podcast Build Perspectives in 2019. Um and we're hoping that this is the one thing like you can listen to where you're going to get different perspectives. Like you and I tend to not disagree very much, so I don't know, like we don't really debate on a whole lot of things, but we are, we do have guests on the show, and our hope is that they're going to bring different perspectives and things that you haven't considered. Because I remember as a rep, like you tend to go to the customer that's nice, and you like where you're going to be welcome with open arms, and like, well, dealing with people who are difficult is also something that can teach you something about yourself and about your product. And I'm not saying, I have hung up on customers. Like, I'm not saying deal with take disrespectful behavior, but don't necessarily just listen to the people that you like and that like you.
That's really good advice. I'll give you a couple cases in point, and going to different markets with, and this isn't just recently, this is a plague probably of the whole industry, but I wouldn't say plague, that sounds negative, but it's something that we could definitely change up, and I think fairly easily. Went on these cold calls with salespeople, and there's a bunch of groups going out, and the the tendency for the local rep is to call on the people they already know. And you look at the list of people and go, oh, okay, and they'll drive right past some of these other cold calls to go to the people they know, and they're not doing it intentionally. They literally said, one of them literally said, oh, well, I was just kind of on autopilot. And that happens on the job. I had a developer tell me one time, and this was in Chicago, and this was only last year. They said, well, I guess we are kind of in a rut.
Mm.
They said we are kind of in a rut. And that was kind of a aha moment for them. And I made a joke. It kind of reminded me of what my mom used to always say. I haven't heard her say it recently, but she would say, you know what a rut is? It's just a grave with the ends kicked out. And
I love that.
I thought it was so funny. And I haven't ever heard anyone else say that again, but it's true. The just like the developers get used to their GCs and their funders, their investors, they get used to certain municipalities, and that's all fine. They get used to building a certain product. Builders get used to building a certain type of home.
Hmm. So
GCs get used to a
how can
certain
we
type of.
disrupt that? I mean, you're a disruptor. I think I commented on Neil Sutton's post the other day. because a
Oh yeah, I
girlfriend of
saw that.
mine, yeah, she's a rep in Denver, and she was having a conversation with a designer, and the designer, she was like, how do you guys, like learn about new products? And they're like, we just like specify the same stuff. I'm like, what kind of an answer is that?
Well,
Rut.
in fairness, yeah, it's a rut, and I think most people would standing back would say
Well,
would
it
agree
works
to
for
that, like
them.
that I am in a rut. But what happens is, and especially when you look at the AIA survey about salaries, I just look at some of these. It's pitiful what a lot of associates and designers make according to that survey, and then they're having to manage all these things, and
And
just a
know, like, yeah, they're responsible for knowing so much.
oh
Like,
my,
you got to know structural MEP. Like, you got to know so many different things about so many different things that, of course, like, once you find something that works, good luck getting me to change.
that's why they do value, and of course it's much easier to get into architect and designer because they are very by nature curious people, and not enough, not many GCs maybe nowadays is changing, and developers are that curious about what's new out there because they have so much more at risk than say an architect or designer. But the just thinking through their time as much, if maybe that was one thing at the event I learned last week, and I didn't, this isn't new, but hey, make things easier for us to plug and play, because for us to change up our rhythm, we may know that we need to change up our rhythm, but no one's making it easy for us.
Yeah.
We need to be able to change this boilerplate process to another boilerplate process, use the same muscles, but then use a different product. And that's just something that the industry hasn't done great. And it
Hmm.
goes the same thing for submittals for value engineering for GCs. If you have a value engineering play, it needs to be really easy for them to present that to the owner and then go back to the architect, get the submittals. So all they have to do is sign off. They're not having to do rework or anything like that. So those are all things that kind of tie into that conversation. But I think most people in the morning don't look at in the mirror while they're brushing their teeth and say, "I'm gonna stay in a rut today." It's just
Yeah.
what happens because of
Yeah.
the industry. Well, wall assembly is at least 17 vendors. That's just walls, in a commercial wall. So it's a tough one. It's tough for them to, well, even if they want to change, to make
Hmm.
that change. But we definitely, as an industry, can make things easier. Software is not the answer to fix all things. AI is not the answer to fix all things. What we know about those two categories is they're going to look completely different in 6 months. But what doesn't change is the relationship and being in person with these folks, returning like the basic block and tackling, learning their business, returning phone calls, going to the job sites, having effective meetings, having purpose and impact. Those are timeless.
Absolutely. 100%. And I think too, um, we can't be all things to all people. And that's why there's enough to go around. This is a very abundant industry, regardless of what it looks like today with all the layoffs and all the shortages and whatever. There, it is still a very abundant industry. And if you're trying to do your job right, you can focus on the customers that would benefit most from what you have to offer, and you maybe Venn diagram that with who you best work with and your personality and where you're located, and you have the recipe for having a great profitable business book of business as a sales rep or as a manufacturer, um, if you just know who to talk to and how to serve them. There's plenty to go around.
There is. And this is not necessarily intellectual property. These are ideas and thoughts about things that are basic in the industry. The challenge is most people don't do them, and that challenge is also an opportunity. It's like the, don't tell people your idea because they're going to steal it. Well, maybe someone will, but most of the times it's just the action, taking action. That's the
Hmm.
hard part.
But
Only
there's never going to be
1%
another
of the people
you.
take the action.
even if someone executes on your idea, and believe me, I've had stuff like ripped from me and without credit plenty of times. I think a lot of people have. We all have had that where we share something and someone else runs with it and doesn't give you the credit and that whatever. Like, and worse, they think it was their idea. And that's okay. Like it happens, right? Like I'm sure whoever's listening, that's happened to you. Like I hear you, I see you because yeah. But no one's had your experience. Like going back to your first one of your first things that you said today, you're the only Tim Sims. You're the only person who can execute on your idea the way that you would execute on it. Like and if you I mean, unless you're trying to be like a bazillionaire, like a there's never going to be another Jeff Bezos. There's never going to be another Tony Robbins. There's never going to be another Bill Gates, right? Like if you're trying to be that, good luck to you. But there is plenty of opportunity for you to grow in the way that you're meant to grow and you know, like I don't know who said this, but we have all the gifts we need for our assignment.
I love that. I love that. Kind of does go back to what Todd said. Don't assume that other people know what you know. And there's
Mm-hmm.
so much room in this industry for purpose, impact, effectiveness, and all the personality. You know what's interesting about that is going back when I started in 1997, going from framing and siding to working at a lumberyard. And some of those skills were portable. Most of it was the language and the credibility to work with the contractors. One of the things early on that Bob Schultz was the general manager of Bellingham Sash and Door. A lot of people listening to this might remember them because they were featured in Hanley Wood and Pro Sales magazines quite a bit. But the manager then said, we were talking about outside sales, reading about it in Pro Sales magazine. These other companies were doing outside sales, and I said I would love to do outside sales. I don't know what exactly it means or anything like that. And he said, well, you can do it, but you're going to anything you need to do this in addition to, we can't add expenses. So what did I do? I did it out of pocket because I was investing myself. When it came to JLC live, I went myself. When it came to other industry events, I went out of pocket. I still do out of pocket because it's something that's valuable. People should be looking in the industry, watching folks that do things out of pocket to better themselves, to learn more about the industry. Of course, they should be investing in their people. It doesn't always work out that way. Budgets, I understand. But look for those folks that have the propensity to invest in
Mm-hmm.
themselves in the industry. Those are the future doers, and doesn't mean they're going to be leading multi-billion dollar companies, but it does. We do need those people. That's the internal locus of control type people who are taking charge of what their knowledge base is and what they need to do to grow it.
Yeah, I that is so well said. And that's kind of where you and I connected back in the dark ages, like that we both have that. Like I'm a personal development. I don't know what the right I was going to say something not very nice, but I consume a lot of personal development and
Yes, I lean on you for a lot of that because I know you take in a lot of content there and a lot of knowledge.
yeah, well, and I get some stuff from you too, and I see your deep work book. I can see it behind you.
Ah, Cal.
Um, yeah, I agree. I think that's where you and I connected. I think if you're not growing, if you're not reading, if you're not listening to podcasts, which this doesn't apply to you people that are listening because you guys are listening. You're out there trying to get better and see what's out there. But there are people who aren't as curious and and companies do invest, right? Companies do provide education support and education match like that is always available, and free content is always available. Like this is free content, and because I understand that like when you're first starting out you can't always afford it. I remember when I was starting out, it was all I could do um, to buy books because I had, three little kids, and it's expensive. You don't make as much money when you're starting out, and you got a lot of people to worry about. But if you're not learning, you're falling behind.
That's a great punctuation for this episode. When you're not learning, you're falling behind. When we're not learning, we're falling behind. And even though it can seem overwhelming, like I'm drinking from a fire hose sometimes, for some reason I still have this compulsion to intake, and
Yeah.
and that curiosity has at times served me very well in the industry and in growth and trying to understand, seeking to understand. What do
There's
you
a
think
new
there?
book that I got. It's called Lean Learning by Pat Flynn. And there's a couple of things I want to say. Like this is the best time ever to be alive if you want to learn something because everybody has a course. And I don't think that's a bad thing because everyone has something to share. I mean, like some stuff is going to be higher quality, better quality. Some stuff is going to be less quality. But what Pat Flynn talks about in this book, Lean Learning, how to achieve more by learning less. It's for me and you. It's for those of us who have like FOMO of learning because we want to learn everything. Just lean into what you need to learn for right now. Like what are your goals? What is it that you need to do? What are your top 2, 3 priorities? And just focus on consuming content in those areas. And I know that it's very simple and I know that this is not the first time you've heard this, but it's really like focusing on it and committing to not learn everything and not get overwhelmed and not give up and only learn in the areas that are really important to you in this season of your life.
I love that when you first held that up, I thought lean learning, like as in lean manufacturing, as an adjective, but it's actually a verb, another
Mm,
verb. And that is what this podcast is all about, perspectives. It's a muscle that we don't always exercise there, but maybe people can think of it from this view, the point of view. We always think of POV in the terms of gaming, maybe point of view games.
mm-hmm,
Look for the other person's POV. That's when we're doing that, we're looking at perspectives. And that's one way to really work the curiosity muscle is to, and that's why Mark Mitchell encouraged us to do this podcast and Zach and Beth. And back to the Mark Mitchell encouragement, which is
mm-hmm,
so amazing to be able to get that nudge from him. But really thinking through the perspectives of the different personas in the industry. And even one, I was talking to someone from NYSERDA and they said, think from the perspective of the building. Imagine you're the building. I thought, wow, I've never done it before. Imagine you're
mm,
the building. It's like an old, what's the Bob the Builder show or something like that. But really think that is a way, if I'm thinking, how can I be more curious? How can I expand my mind? How can I get into more thought experiments? One way, and probably the best way, is to think through the perspectives of the supplier, of the manufacturer, of the raw goods supplier to the manufacturer, of the logistics people, the 3PL, the 4PL, the longshoreman, the homeowner, the HOA person who everyone hates. Thinking through those different
the
points of view
insurance
help us
companies.
be curious. So
Yeah.
if someone
Yeah.
were, because that's one thing Mark Mitchell used to always say is, hey, there are few people in this industry as curious as Tim Seims. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing to get to achieve curiosity. I don't know, but part of that is to look at things through different sets of eyes, and
Hmm. And
I
with an open mind, right?
and with an open mind, right?
Yeah. Just being willing to learn, being open, being like a vessel for learning, not realizing that you don't have all the answers and that you never will. No, like you, learning is endless, like endless. You can spend lifetimes learning, which
Right.
is
And
fun.
that may sound overwhelming. People look at all these books. You have a ton in your office, I know, and it may seem, oh my goodness, that's so much. But the great thing about learning is we're doing it all the time anyway, so might as well be
Hmm.
intentional about it. And so pick a
Exactly.
couple things and listen and read. And then when you're done with those, you might say, they're interesting or not interesting. That's fine either way. And then move on to something else, and then move on to something else, and just take little bites. There was counter sales rep at Kenyon Noble in Montana, and I saw his station was all set. Like he had all his price books, he had all these different things. Then he had his pro sales magazines, his industry regs. That's a bad term, but anyhow, industry magazines all categorized and these little markers out of them. It kind of reminded me when I first started at the lumberyard sales, because I was just like so hungry for learning all that stuff. And that's the sort of people we need. We need more of in industry. So leaders out there, definitely encourage your folks, if they want to get books on Amazon and expense it. Your situation, but that's probably a great investment if they want to take some time and listen to podcasts while they work, or take a break or whatever, or chat about it around the water cooler. Those are all great investments.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. All
Well, speaking
right.
of free, this are we ready to wrap this thing up?
Yeah. I think we both are. Yeah.
Speaking of free,
We
this podcast is made available free to you, our loyal listener, thanks to support from, we didn't get to talk about it that much, but Job Site IQ.
Yeah, Job Site IQ. We'll talk about it on the next podcast, but make sure you check it out. It's an assessment to give you a job site IQ. And I know, Tim, you probably got a perfect score on that.
I did not. I did not. But again, tells you I still have stuff to learn. But I do love what the deliverable on that really was a great visual. It wasn't just a rating that was kind of nebulous, really specific. And I really appreciated that because it kind of implanted in my brain, okay, how do I get to there? Not from a competitive standpoint, but just from trying to improve. And I
Hmm.
really like how you did that graphic. So there'll be a link to it in the show notes.
Yes, check it out. Jobsiteiq.scoreapp.com. But yeah, there will be a link in the notes. And I'd love to see what your scores are. And we'd love to hear from you. And, what do you want to listen to? What do you want us to talk about? Who do you want us to have on? And if you love Build Perspectives like we do, please reach out, connect on LinkedIn, and send us a like or a comment or subscribe on any platform, whatever platform you are listening in, because your ratings and your reviews really help to bring new listeners and grow our audience.
So good to send us message on LinkedIn too, because we both responded to those very quickly. So if you have any ideas of guests, definitely let us know, or ideas. I love that, Carolina. So let us know what you're thinking, and we hope that this is entertaining architecture and construction talk and fresh perspectives, something my dad says you can never have too much of. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Goodbye.